Hello. Anybody here? I don't know. I don't know if anybody's here. I'm not even sure anybody can hear me. So, we'll see how we're doing. We've got a new desktop setup. I got myself a well, not a brand new. It's a used, brand new to me, 4K 32-inch monitor. I'm liking it so far. I got it out of the box. I liked it enough. I wasn't sure how good it'd be because I bought it used on eBay. So I wasn't sure. Like it's a few years old. It's a B32 6HK. So I think like Linus Tech Tips had a review of it, like a glowing review of it, 7 years ago. So that gives you an idea of how old the monitor might be. The frame is a bit scuffed up. Like I wasn't sure how good it was gonna actually be when I got it. So I decided like if I got it, it was either gonna be my secondary monitor for like watching OBS, anything I needed to have off on the side, just at a quick glance. Or if it was really good, I was using it as my primary monitor. And I got it today, hooked it up. It worked great. It looked great. Everything was fine. Like the frame is scuffed up, like super scratched up and messed up, but this display is brilliant. So I took everything down, re-put everything back up. And now I've got a side monitor that's my old, I bought it in November, but I have my 32 QHD monitor on the side here, portrait mode. It's curved, so it's kind of like the top is kind of leaning towards me, the bottom's leaning towards me, and the middle is kind of like straight-ish. And it's really cool. Hey, Henzen, how's it going? Thanks for letting me know that you can hear me. That's awesome. Because I, for some reason, can't get OBS to monitor audio to me for some reason. So if I sound off or terrible or anything like that, let me know, and I'll try to address it. If not today, next time. But yeah, so now I've got the 32-inch QHD I bought in November, portrait mode on the side, and it's curved, so like the bottom is facing up at me, the top is facing down at me, so it's really easy to just at a glance see things there. And I've got the just like flat panel 32-inch 4K right in front of me. That's my primary monitor now. It's absolutely gorgeous. I haven't adjusted any settings because it looks beautiful. And I've got my old ultra wide full HD up on the top. It's like 28 inches across, but it's like ultra wide, so it's almost as wide as the 4K. And that's just like up at top, leaning towards me so I can see. I got my chat up there. I've got YouTube Studio up here. It's really cool. I'm loving it. It's awesome. I think it's going to be a huge quality of life improvement for like streaming and coding. I know for streaming, like having the chat off to the side, I'd get coding and I wouldn't pay any attention to it. But now literally the chat is right there in my periphery, just above my line of sight, making things so much better. But yeah, if anybody has any questions tonight, let me know. I'll be streaming for like the next 2 hours or so. So yeah. Let's see what we're gonna do. I'm just checking Discord real quick. I know Kintech is working on some cool stuff with Bobby. They're building a new feature for the Discord server using the bot. We're gonna do some interesting things with that. Hopefully make it a little bit easier for people to just hang out and chill together, collaborate together. Like, we want to see some collaboration between people, and we want to see people like really growing and working together and learning stuff together. So that's what we're trying to lean into right now with the features we're building. I know we just got access to the premium memberships. We've got a couple premium members already, and we're super grateful for Henzen Kintech for becoming our first 2 premium members. It's going to help out. Like every month we do our monthly project contest where people submit their projects, the things that they think they've made that are cool that month, and everybody else gets to react to them, and just like whoever has the most reactions at the end of the month, I get them nitro for the next month. So that's a neat little thing we do. And so like having the premium members is going to help out with paying for that every month. So we're super grateful for that. Yeah, that's pretty much what's going on with us. Like, So yeah, if you've got any questions, let me know at any time during the stream. I've been working on a project. It's been the top secret project. So anybody on the stream tonight is going to get to experience and see what it is that I'm working on. I haven't made a lot of progress. Work has been very busy. And I've just had a lot going on at home. Like I gotta mow the lawn. It's summertime, I gotta mow the lawn. I've had to replace screens on Windows. Like I've had a lot of stuff going on. We've had a bunch of holidays. And like I had to spend time with the family on the weekend. And it's been nice, but it's not left me with a lot of time to work on larger projects that I'm interested in working on. And then like I've also wanted to work on my Bevy project, which does dependency injection using Python, and I finally got it working the way I want. And I've been using that for this project right here, but that's also meant that I've been splitting my time. So like I'll find a problem with Bevy while I'm working on this project, and then I'll have to jump back out to Bevy to fix that problem. And I might spend an afternoon fixing a problem in Bevy rather than building a feature for this website I'm working on, for this thing this summer. So I was hoping to have this ready last month. Didn't get it ready. I was hoping to have it ready at the beginning of this week, so it'd be ready for the first day of summer, which was yesterday. It's not ready. I saw it wasn't gonna be ready, so I was thinking, all right, I'll get it ready for the Sunday after the first day of summer. I might make it. I'm not totally convinced. So it's looking like we might start this whole thing off in July. But like the cool thing, Bevy, how long have I been working on that? December of 2019. Like it's been a long road. Every time I've rewritten it, I've increased the version number by 0.1. And it's currently at, is it 1.38? So that should tell you it's on its 13th iteration where I've completely rewritten it. Because every time I've written it, I've built something with it. And then that would let me get a feel for, is what I did a good idea? Did it work? Does it do the things I want it to do? Is it confusing? And almost every time it would turn out to be confusing. And I just had to keep rewriting and keep refining it and keep coming up with new ways of doing things. And one of the problems I always had was like every iteration, it's done dependency injection. It's been really cool for dependency injection. It's done a really good job of doing that. And like the basic idea behind it has always remained the same. Use type annotations to inject dependencies into objects when they're instantiated. Where I've run into tricky bits and difficulty, and the thing that's caused me to rewrite it 13 times now, is I want it to be able to do more than just create an object and inject it into a class. I want it to allow you to provide substitutions, so you could use it for mocks, so you can literally inject a customized version for your tests into a project and have it work with that customized object, and that gets injected instead of something else. I wanted to be able to say, hey, I want a settings object injected into this class, and I wanted that settings object to be able to be populated with the config data already, and like you wouldn't have to think about what file is that settings file being pulled in from, what's the API for the config loader or whatever you're doing. And so like that was never easy to do in the prior iterations of Bevy. And what I came to the realization of in Bevy 1.2 was to use a provider interface where like you create a provider class and you add that to Bevy. Hello JM, how's it going? How you doing? But yeah, so like you would add like this provider to Bevy, and then Bevy would use that provider to figure out how to create different dependencies. And like the 1.2 iteration didn't quite work cleanly. It wasn't super flexible. It was a little bit confusing how to work with it. But in 1.3, I have really nailed it down, and it is incredible. Like literally what the providers have allowed me to do is insane things. Like I can now take a function, bind it to Bevy has what I call a context, and that's what stores all the instances that are being injected into classes. And so what I've done is the Bevy context can now bind to a function, not just an object. And it's always been, up until 1.2, it had always been you could only use Bevy on an object. Now, with Bevy 1.2 and 1.3, 1.3 really made this feature possible. I can literally bind a function to a Bevy context, and now that function will have its annotated parameters injected automatically. So you don't even have to do anything to pass parameters to these functions when you call them. It's the most incredible, powerful thing. Like, I can actually show, let me see if we figure out where we have something. If I come in here to API, do I have anything here that's using it? No, not really. If I go over to site, I think I might be using it here. Create context, index. No, I'm not using it here. You know where I'm using it? I'm using it mostly in the tests. That's where you'll see a lot of it. So if I come over here to API, like you can see I'm creating the context. I'm creating a fixture for the context, and I create the context. And if we jump into here, we see like I'm using the context factory to create a new context. And what that factory does is it creates the context with a type injector and then a function injector. So the type injector just says, hey, you've requested this type. I'm going to instantiate that type. The function provider says, hey, you've tried to inject a function. I'm going to bind that function to the context. And then we'll inject that bound function into whatever you're injecting it into. But then I've created a couple other providers that I send into this context. So like I have this database provider. So now anytime I need access to the database, I just tell it that I need, if I come over here, I think we can see it. I tell it, like I can literally just do like DB async engine. So all I have to do is that. And Bevy will handle now injecting a connected database connection that's using, if we come back over here, like you can see, let me see if we have it. I don't know where it is in here, but like it'll literally pull in. Oh, right here. Here it is. So like this is a Bevy method. This is a method that's bound to the context. And so it creates the async engine using the settings URI here, right? Right here. Let me make that a little bit bigger for you. So like right here, it's using settings.uri into create engine. And it's using Bevy method. So this settings right here is being injected by Bevy into this function. So when this create connection function is called, you don't pass anything to it if you don't want to. You can literally just call that function and it'll pull in the database settings object from the context, the Bevy context, right? And if we jump into that right there like that, we have this base settings model. This is a Pydantic model, and it has like this config key database, yada yada, all that fun stuff, right? And so that's using a base settings model. And if we come back over here, you see I'm adding a settings provider, and that settings provider is looking for anything that is instance of base settings model. So anything that's a base settings model, this provider supports. And what does it do? It gets the object, it takes the object, it binds it to the context, okay? And then it gets from the context, it gets the bound type. So the type that was annotated. So like over here, if we go back over to here, this type right here, where it's saying database settings, that's the type that it's using right here. So it's getting that from the config. So the config is being injected. Like this is like just all turtles all the way down, quite honestly. So you have a provider that's using Bevy to inject in a config object, right? And then it's using that config object to grab the bound type with the config key from the object. So you're literally you're just saying, hey, I need a base settings object. And then Bevy is going out to the providers and saying, hey, I want a base settings object. And the settings provider is saying, all right, I can handle a base settings object. I'm going to grab the config object from Bevy, and then I'm going to get, which is just a dictionary essentially, and it's just going to grab all of this information from it based on what the settings. It's incredible what it can do. And so you can just write the most simple code, and it'll have all of this complexity. Like I think you can tell, like it's incredibly complex what's happening behind the scenes here. And like literally all you're doing is, I want a settings object, database settings, and it'll automatically figure out where's the config file. It'll automatically know what key to grab from that config file, and then it just gives you an object that has all of your settings that you wanted. It's absolutely incredible. And you just have to write you just write the code right like this. So like, oh, I have these fields. And because it's using Pydantic, you can literally write stuff like all this right here, and it'll inject it. And then Pydantic has the ability you can pull in values from the environment. So like, it's literally, if the value isn't in the config file, it'll pull it from the environment. And then like, if we go over to config, just for fun, like just see, where'd that go? Oh yeah, it's up here. Config. So if we go into config, like you see, it looks for a production.config.yaml, development.config.yaml. Yeah, it's super complicated, but it's just like, so like I have a bunch of different pieces that are getting plugged in together, and I'm using this other thing I built to hook them all together in a very nice, neat, clean way. So like you see this config, it's literally pulling in 2 different config files. If either of them is missing, it just ignores them. And if both of them are there, it gets the first one, and then it overrides any settings in the first one with the values from the second one. Right down here, like you see, that's all happening right here. And then it stores it inside in the data variable right here. And then you just, whenever you request something, you give it a model, and then it looks up the value based on the key that you requested. And then it populates that model with the data from the config file. And like that's getting glued into anything else using Bevy. And it's as simple as just saying, hey, I want the database settings, inject them, please. And the Bevy method handles that. And then like you can set, I could set it up here too. I could just right here, I could do DB settings, database settings equals inject, right? Like that, as simple as that. And now I can come down here and do self.db settings dot username, .uri, .config, .password, .name, .driver, .host, .port. They're all available to me right there just by adding one line of code. It handles loading the file, populating a model, and then gives me that populated model. It's super awesome. And that's why I'm very happy with this. Like, it's absolutely done everything I've ever wanted it to do and then some. So, like, originally, all it was ever supposed to do was this right here. This right here is all it was supposed to do. You were just supposed to be able to do this, and it would work. And because it's so powerful, I was able to build this Bevy method system, which will inject into functions, which is absolutely bonkers. It's crazy. And I love it. And like I said, this is a database provider. This is a part of what Bevy uses to figure things out. And this has access to everything that Bevy is doing, which is absolutely crazy, because everything at every level can pull in stuff from the Bevy context as if it was just like any other object. It blows my mind that I was able to make it happen. Yeah, it's like this right here is me creating the context. It's setting up the context. Like you see here, it's adding to the context. It's adding a database settings object that's instantiated with the driver already set to SQLite. Okay, and it's telling it to use that as the database settings. So now anywhere where you have where'd it go? I don't have it open right now. Go away. Oh, there we go. Come back to here. If we go back over to, where was that? Provider. If we come over to the provider, okay. So where we're doing the base settings right here, that's saying give me the base settings. Whatever has been set for that model type is what's going to get injected. So right here, I'm setting that database settings object to a value that's already instantiated. So it's not going to go out to the config. It's already got a value. So I'm able to, in my tests, automatically override the behavior that exists in my web app and provide custom values to anything I want. And then like right here, you see I'm doing it again with authentication settings, with JWT settings. It has the private key. So like I'm able to set the private key in my tests to something that I know what it is, so I can easily test things. And then like you have all your tests right down here. And like you see here, the context, it's creating an async engine, and then it's gonna await that engine to create all the tables. So like that's creating the tables on the engine that we're creating right here, and that's getting created and added to the Bevy context. So anything else that gets this context will now have that already set up database. And because I'm using SQLite and I'm not giving it a file, it's in memory. So I'm able to create this database anytime I need it on the fly. and it'll automatically leave the tables. Everything in that run of the tests will have that database. And actually, it's even more granular than that, because each of these fixtures gets rerun for each test. So I've got like a test here, I've got a test down here, I've got a test down here. So they're all rerunning these fixtures. So each one of them has their own in-memory SQLite database, which is why this is so cool, because it's like I can go over my settings file. If I come over here, it's like I've got it set right now to use a database, a SQLite database, but the name of the database is going to be dev.db. And so it gets shared, but if I were to just not set the database settings, it would load in these settings and every single test would use that dev.db file. But because I'm overriding it right here and I'm not setting a file name, it just gets an in-memory database. They all get their own database. It's so awesome. It makes testing very simple. It makes testing very easy. And it's like right here, like this test, I want to be able to check my authentication settings. So I want to make sure that the job that I'm getting back from this, or is it from there? Let me see. This is testing an invalid bearer token. So I'm able to pull in the authentication settings, right? I'm able to get the algorithm from those settings. I'm able to give it my own invalid key, and then I'm able to encode everything and make sure it's everything but one value is wrong to see if the validation stuff on the back end works. It's really cool. It works really well. It makes things a lot simpler because I can get values out that I need at any time. I can put in values to override existing values or future values at any time. Like I can do all kinds of crazy stuff. It's really handy. And I had a lot of fun making it work. And I figured out how to get it to work with Fast API using the Fast API depends. So it's been really cool. It's been a really cool thing, a fun process. And I think I'm like probably about 90% done with it. I think it's about done. I think it's about ready for like public consumption. I'm going to finish this project, see where I'm at with it. I've got to build a website for my mother, which I think she said she needs by the end of August. So I've got a little bit of time on that. But with how slow I've been going on this project, I don't want to take too long to get to her project. But once I get all that nailed down, I'm probably going to write up some detailed docs and tutorials for Bevy. And I might actually try promoting it, because I think it's probably the coolest thing I've ever built. And it's probably something that a lot of people who use Python might find interesting. So yeah, that's what I've been working on for the past month and a half, on and off, while trying to work on this other Summer of Code project. But all right. So what I've been working on today is I've got two things I need to work on. First off, because this site, the Summer of Code thing, is going to be a part of the Discord. PyCharm, yeah, it's a full-fledged IDE. It's based on IntelliJ. It's just geared towards Python. This does literally everything. I've got the pro version here right now. And the pro version does absolutely everything. Like I have Docker files, syntax highlighting. I've got everything you can imagine. Like it'll do Python, it'll do JavaScript, it'll do CSS, it'll do HTML, it'll do Docker files. Pretty much any file type you throw at it. Like it does markdown files. It does it support the Py? Yeah, it supports the PyProject, the TOML files. It supports everything you can imagine, right? And then like if I go over to this database file, let me see. I haven't done this much. I've done this once. Does that do something interesting? No, that doesn't. Can I drag it over here? Apply. Okay. All right, cool. So now I've opened up this SQLite database right here in the IDE, which is so cool. And so like it just does so much for you. And like VS Code is a little bit stronger when it comes to type annotations in Python. It's a little bit better at detecting types and keeping track of the types of variables. But I feel like PyCharm's just been doing Python for so much longer. And like they have the community edition, which is completely free. I found it's a little bit less featureful. I think it's like using like a version behind of everything. So it's not as good at type annotations as the pro version. It's not as it's a little bit less optimized in the pro version. But it's good enough. I used it for the longest time. I did get the pro version because I want to be able to access my projects remotely. And so that's what the pro version has let me do if I can ever figure out how to get that set up. But so it's just way more optimized for like a Python workflow, and like because they do IntelliJ, they do CLion, they do WebStorm, they have so many different IDE flavors for different languages and projects and different kinds of things you're doing, that like it just feels a little bit more refined than VS Code does. Like out of the box, the shortcuts are a little bit more intuitive for me. Out of the box, the shortcuts do more things that I want them to be able to do. Like I can move an individual line of code. I can move a block of code intelligently based on the syntax. I can do I can jump into definitions super easily. It has support for like if there's a file that's not typed, PyCharm generally like if it's a big package that like everybody's using that's super popular in the community, PyCharm, and it's not got type annotations, PyCharm usually has a annotation file for it, so you can get the type annotations even though they don't already exist. And that's just stuff that like doesn't quite exist in the VS Code world yet. And like I know it's been like the last year since that I'm trying to think what the plugin is. Like there's one extension for VS Code that's like that it now ships with for Python, and that only got added to VS Code as a built-in plugin for VS Code in the last year. And like without that, it's even worse for Python. So yeah, I just find PyCharm is just a little bit more polished. It feels a little bit more developer experience friendly than VS Code has. And like I've used Sublime in the past. I used like probably like 7 years ago, Sublime was like the editor for anybody who didn't want to like buy a really expensive IDE. But it's definitely not what it used to be. Like it's nowhere near as good as it used to be. It's slower than it used to be. Like I know Sublime, I used to be able to open huge files in it. And like there was one day that I tried to open a huge file in it like a few years ago, and it just choked. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what the heck has happened to it? Like I was opening huge files in Sublime on like a 2008 MacBook Pro in 2014, and it handled it like a champ. And then like I was opening it in like a more modern MacBook Pro, and it choked, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. So like Sublime's really fallen by the wayside, I think. Atom has been discontinued. I never liked Atom, but like it got discontinued. And sadly, it was really with like VS Code and like purpose-built IDEs like PyCharm. And I've just found PyCharm to be so much more polished, so much more like friendly towards a developer workflow. I think VS Code will get there. Like, there's no reason why VS Code won't. It's got the backing of Microsoft. It's got a ton of users. It's super popular. It'll get there. It just takes time for these things to happen. And I think I'm not a super huge fan of using anything that's tied to a huge company like Microsoft. There's a little bit too much potential for things to get weird at some point. I feel like IntelliJ, like JetBrains behind PyCharm and IntelliJ, like they're not a super huge company, and they're like in the business of delivering a developer experience that's really good. And so I feel like they will have a more consistently put the developer first, and have less of a tendency towards becoming profit first. And I think you're kind of already seeing that with VS Code. Like, it's getting new extensions and new plugins all the time. They've got like a paid marketplace. I think PyCharm might have a paid marketplace, but like I've literally never heard of a paid extension on PyCharm. I'm sure they exist, but like I've never heard of one. But like VS Code, that's like a thing. Like I've heard about that. Like I've heard people mention paid extensions before. And I don't even use VS Code. So I feel like they're a little bit more mainstream in VS Code. VS Code is pulling in your personal, like it's doing tracking. So it's like, I don't know. I'm not bought into the VS Code hype as much. All right. So where were we? Okay. So where we were at, let's see what we're doing here. How do I get rid of this? Well, there we go. Got rid of that. So what I was trying to do here for new programmers, write code. Like, it doesn't have to be good code. It doesn't have to be code that's going to get you a job. It doesn't have to be a code that has any purpose whatsoever. It's just got to be code. It's got to be something that catches your interest and that you enjoy writing, and that you enjoy exploring and getting, like, understanding why the code works. Like, something that's going to motivate you to write code. It's just, that's all it's got to be. Like, when I was getting started, I was 16 at the time. Civilization 4 had just come out. I had just gotten it. And you could mod it. Like, me and my brother had modded Civilization 3. It shipped with a in-game, like, it didn't ship with an in-game, like, it installed with it in its program files an exe that you could load up to edit the maps. You could edit units. You could edit different things about the game. You couldn't write code for Civilization 3, though. Like, you could only use that world builder. Civilization 4 came along, and it had an in-game world builder where you could just edit the map and you could put stuff on the map. And then it had a bunch of XML files, and it had a bunch of Python files, and you could put them in your user directory. You could have a games folder or Civilization 4 folder and a games folder, and you could put mods in there, and you could have a whole bunch of different mods running. And you could write Python to change how the game behaved. You could adjust XML files. There were hundreds and hundreds of things that you could edit inside of XML files to add new units to the game, to add new items to the game, like change all kinds of mechanics in the game, change the weights on different things, and so I got really big into writing. I learned Python specifically. Python 2.2. We're up to Python 3.10, about to get 3.11. I was writing Python 2.2 at the time, in 2006, to write mods for Civilization 4 that I would share on the civfanatics.com website. And people would download my little mods and like my mod components and use them in their own mods and play their game with my mods. And like I actually made like the front page of the Civ Fanatics website, writing this code for that, and like I recently was Googling to see if I could find something about them, because I wanted to find something I had written back in 2006, 2007, and I discovered that like I was being mentioned on podcasts at the time. It was absolutely crazy stuff. But like I wasn't writing code to get recognized. I wasn't writing code to get a job. I was 16. I wanted to play a game. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to have these features that didn't already exist. So I just wrote code to do that. And like I've never shown anybody that code outside of the Civilization universe of people, the people who played the game at the time back in 2007, 2006, 2008. Oh, for sure. We've got a few people who right now are a little bit negative on themselves, and like I would really wish they would recognize that like you don't have to be the most successful person to be successful. Like to have a future and a career and to have a good life and make the money you need to live, you don't have to be the perfect, world's greatest, record-setting expert. You just have to start at the beginning and enjoy what you're doing and do things you enjoy. And that's my advice for anybody who's new to programming. For new programmers, is just start out writing things that pique your interest. You will have fun and you will learn at the same time. And like I started writing code for Civilization in 2006, probably like late 2006. And so I started college in 2008. And by the time I got to college, I literally knew enough about Python and about C to be able to go to my freshman year classes, my coding classes. I would show up, take the quiz, because every morning there was a quiz. I would take the quiz, and then I would go to sleep. And I got an A+ in the class. And that wasn't because I'm a genius or anything like that. I just had fun writing code for about 2 years. I just wrote code for about 2 years, really enjoyed it, had a lot of fun. And that gave me the experience I needed to be good enough to actually go down to the lab and help people with their questions and help people understand things. And I was able to pass my computer science classes with flying colors. I wasn't so good at anything else, but I passed everything that I needed to pass. And I didn't have the world's most stellar GPA or anything like that, but I graduated and I had fun. And I learned a lot, and it was a good experience. And I think it's more important to prioritize your experience and what you're enjoying over becoming the best and understanding everything. Because what's going to matter in the end is, are you passionate? Are you enjoying it? Because if you hate it and you're just doing it to have a job, you're going to burn out, you're not going to have fun, and people are going to notice that, and they're not going to give you the opportunities you want. You're not going to get the opportunities you were expecting to get, because people don't want to be around someone who's stressed out and hates their life because they're doing something they do not enjoy. So make sure you're enjoying it. Enjoy it first. You will learn on the road to doing the thing you enjoy. If you're doing the thing you're enjoying, you will learn it. You will. Like, trust me, you will. So that's my advice to all the new programmers. Just write code for things you enjoy. Don't think about who's going to use it. Don't think what other people are going to think about it. Like, you're going to write terrible code for like the first 10 years of your life. And like, every employer knows that. Your college or university knows that. Everybody who's looking at your work knows that. Unless you're applying for like a senior level job, nobody expects you to have the most stellar code, the best code, the greatest code. They just expect you to have some passion for the subject. I know there was someone on the Discord, oh goodness, like 2 months ago, maybe it was a month ago, I don't even know. But like, they were probably the most down in the dumps person I've seen yet on there. And like, this guy had a graduate degree in computer science, and he had applied to 300 jobs and had gotten like 2 interviews and hadn't gotten a job offer. And I'm like, what have you done to like show what you're capable of? And he's like, oh, I have nothing on GitHub. I have no social media presence. I have nothing. I just sit at home submitting job applications. And it's like, well, dude, like, obviously nobody believes that you actually are a programmer, because when they go to your GitHub, it's empty. When they go to your social media, it's empty. Hello, Jessa. How's it going? Oh, yeah. All right. Cool. So, yeah, that's my advice. Like, just do things that you enjoy. People will see that you enjoy it, and they will give you jobs. They will be like, oh, this person likes coding. Maybe I should give them a job coding. Because literally nobody wants to be around someone who hates what they're doing. So, yeah, that's my advice. Do something you enjoy, and you will end up succeeding. Like, that's straight up how it works. If you enjoy it, you will succeed. So, yeah. All right, cool. All right, so this project, the Summer of Code project, what I've been trying to deal with today, and I've been very distracted because I got a brand new computer monitor. What I've been trying to do is I want to get Discord login working. So where you click on the login with Discord button, it takes you out to Discord. Discord asks you if you are okay with sharing, in this case, your email with beginner.codes. And then you will click, yes, I'm totally willing to share my email with beginner.codes. And then Discord sends back to us on the beginner.codes website information about you that allows us to access your email address so that we can log you in and create an account for you. That's what I've been trying to figure out. But before I can do that, because if I'm going to have your user information and create a user for you on our website, I need to have a database. And like, I have a database, like I have migrations here for the database. Like, we go in here and we go into versions and we go into this file right here. You see, we've got columns, we have a table, we have a users table, we have a challenges table. It has columns. We have all of this stuff here, right? The problem is, it's here. It's in my code. It's not in my database. I could stand up a SQLite database right here, right now, and run these migrations on it. But that won't help the website because that's on my computer. It's not on the Postgres server I have out in the cloud. So I have to figure out how to take this and run it on my Kubernetes cluster and have it push these tables out onto my Postgres database. And so how am I going to do that? And that's what I've got to figure out next. And so my idea is, what I'm going to have it do is I'm going to do the login. I'm going to get the login work. I'm going to create a page, an admin page. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create an admin page. And it's going to be admin/db, right? And if I go to that page and the user that logs into that page is an admin role user, it'll let you access that page. But what if we don't have a database? So we don't have any users. And so we don't know which users are admin users because we don't have a database. What do? So what's going to happen in that case is you're going to go to the website. It will hopefully load because it's been written well and doesn't need a database to show you something. You're going to go to the website. You're going to attempt to log in. You're going to get pushed out to Discord. You're going to say, yes, Discord, I want to log in. It's going to pop you back to the website. It's going to encounter an error with the database because there are no tables in the database. And then it's going to say, all right, I'm going to redirect you out to the admin/db. And I'm going to check, is the email address that I got back from Discord Zek's email? If it's Zek's email, I'm going to show the DB admin page, even though nobody's logged in. So essentially, I'm going to log it in based on the email address that Discord gives back. And then I'm going to have a button where I can click it and run all of this code. So that's what I've been trying to figure out. That's what I've got to figure out now. That's what I was working on before the monitor arrived. And unfortunately, the monitor arrived, and I've been distracted for like 3 hours, 4 hours at this point. So I'm going to try and work on this right now. This is how far I got. I made the admin page, and if you come over here, you can see I added the admin app at the admin URL. So I have the DB URL. I have a invalid code that is just copied over from another file. And like this is not an API endpoint, so I have to make it an actual page. I'm not sure how we do that. Right here, this is how we do that. So if we come back over here and we paste this right here and change this back to DB, HTML response, and we have to pull that from FastAPI.responses, HTML response, boom. And then that's not site, it's supposed to be admin app, right like that, boom. So we have that. If we do this, there we go. That got the imports sorted. All right. I'm coding, and like, if you want to ask questions, feel free. I've got the chat right there. I'll see it within a few seconds. There's a little bit of a delay between when you guys send a message and when you hear me respond. And there's a little bit of delay between when I notice that you sent a message and when I respond. So there's usually like a 30-40 second delay between a question being asked and me getting out an answer and then you guys seeing the response. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Like, I'm here to answer tonight. I'm here to hang out and answer questions. To keep things interesting, I write code while we're doing it. So that's what's going on right now. Okay. All right. So now I've got that working. What do I need to do? I need to grab the token from the cookies, because what we're going to do is when you log in, we're going to create a JOT. We're going to put your user ID from our database into the JOT. This way we know it's you, and we know you didn't tamper with the session cookie. Because it's signed by our server. It'll be signed by our servers, encrypted with a signature. The signature will be encrypted, will be the body of the JOT encrypted. So you can't change it, because if you change it, the signature will not match the contents. So we're going to use a JOT that's going to contain your user ID, so we know who you are, and we know that you actually were given that token, that you didn't just modify the token and put in my ID into your token. So we're gonna have to check the cookie. That's gonna get stored in the cookies when you log in. So I've got to grab that cookie, and I've got to check that the cookie. I have to check two things. I have it written down here. So what we got to do is we got to check two things. First off, we want to check and see if there's a user ID. If there's a user ID in the cookie, we know the database exists, and so we just got to check and see if you have the admin role. So if cookie, right? This is what we're gonna do. Dot user ID. If user ID in cookie, okay. And let's see. How do we do this? Trying to think how I want to do this. It's lemonade and it's sour. Next batch is going to be Kool-Aid because I am a child. But so what we're going to do is if there's user ID in cookie, and get user cookie, whoop. Just getting the logic down right now. Like, this isn't actually how it's gonna work. It's kind of how it'll work. Dot roles dot admin. If dot admin, all right, cool. Just do that. Then we are going to. So it's not in cookie. Raise HTTP exception. .403. It's gonna be a 403, not authorized, forbidden. 403 is forbidden. So if user ID not in the cookie, and email not in the cookie, because what's going to happen if the database isn't set up, the cookie will contain a JOT. The cookie will still have the JOT in it, but instead of having a user ID, it's going to have an email, and then we're going to use that email to check if it's me. Maybe it won't even be necessary. Well, yeah, it'll be necessary. Because we need to know that this page doesn't handle the Discord login. This page needs some way to know that the Discord login happened and that it came back with valid information. So we're using a JOT in a cookie, and that JOT is signed, so we know it came from our server. We know it hasn't been tampered with because it's been signed, cryptographically signed. So I can trust this cookie for the most part. I can trust this cookie. I'm going to trust this cookie. I've made the decision that I'm going to trust this cookie based on the fact that it has been signed. And so if it contains a user ID or the email, I will probably show this page. If it contains the user ID, if it doesn't contain either of them, we raise an exception. If user ID in cookie, user equals get user. So this is how we're going to do this. User ID. And then we do if user.roles.admin. And then we raise exception. You gotta raise the rate exception. 403. So if you're a user, if you're logged in, so if there's a cookie with a user ID, that means someone's logged in. So then we got to make sure that they have access to this page. So we got to check that they have the admin role. I don't know how we're going to do that. So I'm just putting in some placeholder code here to like develop out this code and figure out how this code is going to function. So that's going to raise an exception if they don't have the admin role. Then down here, we know whoever it is, they have authorization to access this page. Well, maybe not. Elif email in cookie and not cookie email equals zek at zek.zek. There we go. So if the email isn't my email, raise HTTP exception 403. Great, like that. Okay, cool. So now, if there's a user ID and the user is not an admin, 403, forbidden, not allowed. If there's an email in the cookie instead, and the email is not my email, 403, forbidden, not allowed. So then after that, we're gonna have to figure out how to do the template. I don't know how this is gonna work, so we gotta figure that out. Admin /db.html. So it's gonna be something like that. We're gonna return right like that, and it knows it's supposed to be an HTML response. So that's what's gonna happen. That's how that's gonna happen. Right here, we're gonna have to figure out how to inject the cookie at some point. But that's the basic logic of this page. This page isn't gonna do a whole lot. It's just gonna pass back a template to the user. Now, a lot of this logic right here is actually not gonna happen inside this function. We're actually gonna use the Fast API depends system, right, like this, and we're gonna do cookie, and that's going to be a dict of string any, and that's going to equal depends, right, like that, and we need to import any, right, like that. So now we've got that working. And so the cookie, how does this work? Let me see if I check over here. Depends, rest form. Okay, yeah, so it's just gonna go out and it's gonna get the cookie. There's another way. Oh, here we go. So he passes in this auth scheme function right here. Like you can see I have it right here. And this is doing the HTTP exceptions. So what happens is, this depends right here. When this function gets called by the framework, hey Arian, how's it going? How you doing? So when this gets called, when this route gets run, when someone accesses this route, Fast API comes through to call this function, and it looks at each parameter and says, all right, is it a depends parameter? Is it set to a depends? If it is, we're going to inject an auth token dict, okay? But before it does that, it runs whatever function you pass to it right here. And this function should return an auth token dict. And that's what's going to get injected, okay? So you can change how the depends injects something by giving it your own function. And so if you look at the function I provided, it returns data, okay? And that data is going to be a dictionary. And like you see, it returns an auth token dict, and we're importing that from here. And that's just a dictionary that has a user ID and a username, okay? And so it's checking. First it checks, can it decode the JOT? If there's a JOT decode error, we don't actually blow up. We don't actually do anything. We handle it. We just say there's no data. So that means if there's no data in the bearer token, then there's no authorization header being correctly set. So that then comes down here. It attempts to get a user ID. If the user ID is none, we 401 unauthorized. You're not allowed to access this endpoint, right? But we don't want to use that right now because we're not working with bearer tokens. What I'm working on, this is an API endpoint. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's because there's no database yet. And that's why I need to just check. Because what I'm going to do is I want to have a way for me to update the database from the website. I don't want to have to, like, I could, I guess, shell in, like, exec into the shell on my Kubernetes pod and then run the necessary commands myself every time I make a database update. But it'd be easier if I could just log in with Discord on my website and click a button in the admin and have the database update. And like if it's a super basic database or a super basic page that doesn't really mess with the database at all, it should never break. It should be fine. In worst case scenario, I exec into the pod, access the shell there, and run the command I need to fix the database. Like it's not a huge problem. But it's just like I want to simplify it and I want to think about it and make this as clean of a process as I can. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. I just think it's more fun this way. It's easier this way and nicer this way. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm going to use that depends logic over here. So I'm going to create a function, a def check cookie. And it is going to, how do we get, let's come over here to Fast API. Already had tab, Fast API, and let's see, if we come over here, tutorial user guide, does it tell me how to grab cookies? Cookie parameters, yes, this is what we are looking for. All right, so all we have to do is say that we want the cookie. And now I think if we do, so we have to come up here, Fast API and cookie. I think session string or none equals cookie, and default equals none. Now I think if we come in here, it's a function, it returns a params cookie. Params cookie inherits from param field info. I'm just trying to see how exactly, so a representation. And then if I come back over here and I look at depends, it returns a params.depends. Interesting. So it is different. I wonder, we'll find out if this works. I don't know if it's going to inject the cookie into a function, and we'll find that out. So we're learning as we go here. Print cookie session, right, like that. So we're just going to do that, and then we're going to return a string, right, like that. Now things are going to explode when we run this. If we come over here and then we do, it doesn't look like I have the shell running. Poetry shell. Now I've got the shell running. Command not found. All right, well, it activated. So, and now you see before up here, it didn't show the summer of code. So now I've got the summer of code with a little Python icon next to it. So that's telling me that my environment is set up. So I can, like, if you're in JavaScript, if you're familiar with JavaScript, do I like TDD? Yeah, I enjoy using TDD. It makes things a lot easier. I've actually got a lot of tests set up on this project. Right now, I'm trying to test the front end just kind of like on the fly, so I'm not using it. So yeah. All right. So, yeah, I missed your message there, Arian. Sorry. Saw it a little bit late. I saw Henzen's order question first. All right, so what we're trying to do here is we're trying to start our thing. So if we do Python -m soc, it explodes. Why did it explode? No signature found for built-in type dict string typing any. Did we? No, we're on 310. Where is that getting raised from? Well, where is that? I don't even know. What the heck? Trying to see where this is getting raised from. Maybe we need to make this a little bit... Wrong window. Got a couple windows in the same spot. There we go. Boom. Let's make that a little bit wider, a little bit easier to read. So, Uvicorn, and then we have import lib. So something was getting imported, right? And like it was being imported, Uvicorn importer, import from string, import module. So Uvicorn is importing a module, right? And so this is the import lib. That's the built-in package for importing stuff. You had a bunch of import lib stuff exploding. And then like it got to this line in my file, my site. It's importing admin app. And then it ran this line, manage DB cookies. It didn't like this cookie bit, right? Oh, you know what? You know what I bet you? I bet you the depends didn't like it. So what we're gonna do, check cookie. Let's see if that fixes it. That fixed it, okay. Because what happened is, Fast API has no idea how to create a dictionary of strings with any value. So it's just like, you know what? Rather than letting you start this site and then exploding when someone attempts to access this route, I'm just going to blow up as soon as you start the website. So this way, when you're in your dev environment, every route that it doesn't know how to handle, it blows up for. So this way you don't push it out to production thinking it's working, and then some user attempts to go to a route you forgot to test, and they get an error message. So that's what happened there. It's just saying, hey, I don't know how to handle this. You're going to have to do something. So this right here, this check cookie function, is going to handle doing that for us, right? So now if I go ahead and start it back up, let's just start it back up. So now we have the server running. And then I'm going to go over to localhost, and I'm going to go to admin, and I'm going to go to DB, right? Detail forbidden. Okay. Why is it forbidden? Because of, let's see, does it give us any error messages? It doesn't look like it gave us any error messages. And so the reason it got to here, this is where it got. So let's see if we can't put a print. Hi. Let's just put a print right there, restart it, and boom. Okay, so then let's come back over here, and let's reload it. Boom, there you go. We see we got hi right there. So it got to here because this cookie went up here, and you see this ran too. This session printed out. It looked for the session cookie and said the default should be none, and then it got back none, right? So if I were to, let's see, let's figure out how we can send a request with a cookie. Let's do scratch, delete that, and then we're going to do import asyncio. So we're going to do an async thing, and then we're going to do import httpx, okay, and then I'm going to do async def main, and this is where we're going to put our code to run this test real quick. And then I'm going to do asyncio.run main, okay, right like that. So then in here, we can do async with httpx. Well, actually, I don't even think I need that. I can just do response equals await httpx dot get. Yes, there we go. All right. And then we do local... going to be local host 8000/admin/db, right like that. Print response, and that should print out something interesting. And then we do two. Ooh, no, it was one. Okay, we run that. And we got to put that. Oops. HTTP. Boom, boom. Run it again. Can't be used in await expression. Oh, I guess I didn't need to await that. Oh, well. So never mind. But yeah, see, it's running it each time we do it, and we get the 403 forbidden. We see it printed out 403 forbidden, right there. Okay, so we're getting that to explode, and then cookies. All right, now how does this work? Does it tell us in the docs? Does this have docs that tell us how to set a cookie? Probably have to jump over to request, and this will probably tell us how cookies work. Doesn't look like they're not using a format in here in their doc string that PyCharm recognizes. So I can't click on stuff, but here we go. Cookies, optional, a dictionary of cookie items to include in the request. So the dictionary, so what is a cookie item? What exactly is a cookie item? Cookies, doesn't tell me a whole lot there. So let's jump into the client. Let's see if the client tells us what the cookies are supposed to be. Optional dictionary, it says the same thing there. If we click on cookies here, it should be cookie types. What is a cookie type? A cookie type, here we go. Now we got something useful. It can either be a cookie jar, whatever a cookie jar is, or it can be a dictionary of strings with strings, or it can be a list of tuples with a string and a string. So you're like with this tuple, it's going to be each string here. The first string is going to be the name of the cookie, and the second string is going to be the value of the cookie. And the same goes with the dictionary. The key, which is going to be a string, is going to be the name of the cookie, and the string value is going to be the value of the cookie. So we're just going to do that. We're just going to do dictionary and dictionary. But like, we can find out what this cookie jar is. A cookie jar is just an object. Probably, if you get the cookies, it's going to be from Fast API. It's going to be a cookie jar. It's not going to be a dictionary. But my guess is it probably behaves like a dictionary, or from HTTPX. It'll probably behave like a dictionary, but all we have to do is this session and then foobar. All right, now if we run that again, we got a 403. But yeah, here you go. You see right here, we printed out the session and we got back foobar. Like if we come back over here to admin, I'm right here printing out the session, which is the cookie named session. So it is working. It is injecting the cookie into our function. So now we can check that cookie. So we can do this. That cookie is going to be a JOT. And we need to do a few other things. We need to do from SOC dot, where is that? Context, import, inject. All right. So then I can do, I need to get the settings from soc.settings. Yeah, well, the thing is, like in Python, more or less a dictionary is a list of tuples. It gets treated that way. So if you do like dictionary.items, it's going to give you back a list of tuples where it's a key value pair. It's just a bunch of key value pairs. So that's why they're doing that. It can be a little odd if you're not familiar with that, I guess. Yeah. Like you can take, like Python will let you take a list of tuples and convert that to a dictionary just by passing the list of tuples to the dictionary. All right. So we need to do config, or where do I have that? Trying to think where I have. Is it auth scheme import authentication settings? There we go. Because I need the settings for authentication settings equals inject authentication settings, right? Like that. Okay, cool. So now I'll have the authentication settings. Because like if we go over to the API test, I was doing this right here. I'm doing it right here. I want this too. I want this right here. No, not really. I don't necessarily need that, but I need to get JOT in here. Import JWT. All right, there we go. And then we can do if not session. So if the session is none, raise HTTP exception 403. No session, right like that. Then if we come back over here and we restart it, and I can show that happening. And we reload this. Boom, no session. Detail, no session. So we got that 403 error, and it returned back the message, no session. And so that's what we're doing. We're moving this logic right here up into this check cookie. So then what do we do next? We do if All right, so we got to get the token. Let me rename this real quick. Update. Boom. There we go. So we're going to update that. So now we're going to call that session token because that's going to be the string that is our token. And then we're going to do session is jwt.decode. We'll just do this. Go away. Right like that. And then I'm going to grab settings dot, if I could type, there we go, dot jwt dot private key. I need to rename this. That was named wrong. Settings, there we go. The private key. Why are we complaining? Is unreachable. Oh, whoops. Again, I can't type for some reason. There we go. So now, there we go. We're decoding. It's expecting it as the first parameter. Yeah. We have to pass in our JWT token, which is going to be the session token, right like that. And so that'll now decode that token. If session, if not session, raise HTTP exception 403, invalid session. Now this one, let's restart the server. And now this one, if we rerun this, 403 forbidden, let's print out something more interesting there. Scratch one, print response.status code, print response.content. Now let's run it. Boom. Detail, no session, right there. So now that one hit, it sent a cookie, but it sent to this cookie foobar, which isn't a valid JOT. It's not a valid JOT at all. So this now is telling us, oh, hey, that's not a valid JOT. You can't use that. So it explodes. So now let's jump over here. I'm trying to think, do I have a, yeah, I have that set. The private key is set to private key. So we can easily test this if we come over here and we import JWT, right like that. And then we've got to create a token. Token equals JWT dot encode, and we're going to encode user ID 1, right like that. Okay, and then we're going to use, this is our private key, and then the algorithm that gets used. Did I set that? Why are you all the way down there? Why is all of this open? Oh, because I was jumping through code. So if we come back over here, I didn't set the algorithm, so it's going to be the algorithm that's set on, let me collapse this. So we were jumping through a lot of code, so it ended up opening up a lot of things I don't care about. Close that. And then I want to look at the auth settings in here. They're in here. Okay. So I have salt. I don't care about that. I care about the algorithm. I need to make sure it's the same. There we go. Away. There we go. We put that there. Boom. Right like that. Okay. So now we're encoding the token the same way that it should be decoded. And then we can pass that instead of foobar. And then we can do this. Return session. Okay. Right like that. If not session, if not user, all right, this is what we're trying to do. If user ID not in session and email not in session, raise HTTP exception 403. Actually, I'm going to move this up here, or right like that, because it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be an invalid session if one of those two things isn't set in the token. So if I set up the token with user I instead of user ID, and then I run it, no session. Why would it say no session? It should say invalid session. Did we goof something up? Oh, we did. Right here. This has to be named session. Never mind, because that's the name of the cookie. Can we set the name of the cookie? I would like to set the name of the cookie. Alias. There we go. Alias session. And then we can call this session token. Right, like that. And now if we run it, 403, no session. No session. What? Why? Because if I come over here, I'm setting cookie session equals token. Should encode it. Print the token. Just make sure that's happening. Yeah, the token is being created. It should be being set. I'm not sure why it's not being set. So let's just name this session. Get rid of the alias. And then we gotta rename this session. And we'll just go with it. Boom. Still says no session. Why does it say no session? What did we goof up? What did I goof up? Wasn't it working before? I got foobar, right? Oh. You know what helps? Is if you're actually running the code you're looking at. Invalid session. There we go. And now if we were to do session token, go back to doing it that way. Token. And that will break it. So I have to set the alias. Alias session. That'll do a good old PHP ID. PHP does session ID, so we're just going to make it look like it's PHP. And then we'll restart our server. The only reason I don't have that on auto restart is because the way the Uvicorn auto restart works, you don't see any of your logging from your code because it's running everything off in another process, which is a problem. And it still says no session. Why are you saying no session? Oh, because I did aliasing it to session ID. So that means I need to pass a session ID. Boom. Invalid session. No session. Invalid session. So that's working. Then if I come back over here and I set user ID instead of user I, and then I run it, internal server error. And we got an error message over here. So that means it got off into the function. So as long as there's a user ID or an email in it, it will be a valid session. So the next up, we need to do, what do we need to do? We need to get the database. We need to get a database session. And the way I've been doing that, if I come over to, is it inside of API? Do I have that working? Authentication. No, I'm not, I don't have that in any of those. Is it inside of here? Yes, there it is. That's what we're looking at. Where are we importing this from? We're importing it from SOC database. And then whoops, not where we want to put that. We want to put this right here. Right. It optimizes my imports when I save the file. So if I save the file and I'm not using the import, it gets rid of it. So I can't save the file when I paste the import. And then, am I in the right file? I'm in the wrong file. Let's go over to here. This is the correct file. This is the file we want. So that's the database. So I want to tell this that I want the database. Database equals inject database. So that'll get me the database connection. And then I can do db await .users .get users users roles. We have to write this code still, and then we give it session user ID, right like that, okay? If user ID in session, we get the user's roles. So then we have the roles. And then we're going to do if admin not in, because like if we look over here in database models, I have roles. So I've got to set an ID, I've got to set a type, and I've got a user ID. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to get the type, and we're going to do the type because that's a Unicode 32. So if admin, what this is going to do is this is going to query, go back over here. It's going to query this role model table, this roles table, and it's going to query it for the user ID that we're currently having authenticated with a cookie. We're going to query this table for that ID, and we're going to get out these types, and we're going to put them in a list. And then we can do admin not in, so the roles list. If it's not in, we raise HTTP exception 403, not an admin. Okay. Thanks for hanging out, Henzen. I've enjoyed having you. All right, so now we're going to create this get users roles. So we have to come back over here to database users, get, all right, at bevy method, async def, get users roles, user ID int, and then session. We have to get a database session, async session equals inject, and this is going to return a list of, we got to import from soc.database.models.roles, import role model. So we're going to import that. So it's going to return a list of strings, and then we're going to, we have to do this. Something like this. We're going to just copy that code and we're going to modify as needed. And yeah, don't forget, guys, like if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Like, we're just here hanging out, and like I said, I'm writing code to keep it interesting. So like we have something to talk about, something that's going on the whole time. If you have any questions, feel free to ask at any time. And if I don't see it, ask multiple times. All right? Okay. So now we're going to query the, oh, did I save the file? I saved the file. Oops. Roles, role model, role model. There we go. And then we do user ID equals user ID. Filter by execute scalars. I don't know what that is. All right. This doesn't tell me what it returns. Scalars. I guess we'll find out, won't we? There's nothing in the database, so I don't know how we'll find out. Well, I guess we could add something to the database because it should be grabbing this database right here. I should be able to add something manually to it, but for now we won't worry about it. User models, scalars, roles, role models, and then we do if not role models, return an empty list. Otherwise, we want to return a list of return role dot type for role in role models. So hopefully that will function. And if we restart the... I have an error where? What? In admin.py. Did I forget to change something? You go away. Admin.py. Where do we have an error? What is it talking about? Line 29. I'm confused. Is this not the file it's saying? I am in Summer of Code SOC admin, which is what it's saying. Oh wait, outside of okay, there we go. This might work. Connection refused because we forgot to start it. There we go. Boom. Not an admin. There we go. So now we got back the roles, okay? But the problem is, we have no way to test it. So let's real quick. We're sending in user ID 1. Let's jump over to here. This is what I want right here. I want to insert into roles. Did it never create the roles table? I guess we'll find out in a minute. Insert into roles, values, type, and user ID. Values, admin, 1. And run it. 1 row affected. So I'm not sure. If I refresh this. Oh, okay, there we go. Roles now has columns keys. What is the keys? ID. Okay, cool. Can I... Ah, there we go. Now you see I've added 1. It has ID 1, admin 1. All right, so now if I were to go back, how do I go back to where I was? There we go. And let's insert another one. Let's insert another one. Mod. And then run. Run that. And then we come back over here. We go main, tables, roles. Now we see user ID 1 has an admin and a mod role. Okay. Let's go ahead and come back over here. Is it here? Not here. We want to go here. This is what we got to see. We got to see if this worked the way I think it should. So we got to restart the code. And then we got to run scratch 1. Not an admin. All right. It didn't get the information I expected. Get maybe. Let's see. Let's see if that worked. Has no attribute get. So what is it that we're doing here? SQL Alchemy. Let us see if we can figure out what we're missing. For row in connection.execute. let's see if this works. Role models dot append. Like, I'm doing it this way because I might have to do an async for. I'm not totally sure yet though. Append row dot type. And then we just return role models. And then we have to restart this. Print cursor. Let's do anything we can think of here. Chunked iterator result. I wonder, is it connecting to the correct database? That might be the question. That might be the problem. Who knows? Oh, I forgot to restart it. Select roles.ids, roles.type, roles.user ID from roles, where roles.user ID equals user ID. So that should work. You know what? Let's go into the database provider. Print connecting to database settings.uri. Let's see what database we're connecting to. It's connecting to the correct database. So that makes me wonder if, let's go over to the console. No, that should have committed, right? Select star from roles where roles dot user ID equals interesting, because if I go over here and I double tap it, there's nothing there. Oh no. Oh no. Why is there nothing there? We added it, didn't we? Oh, goodness. Why did it not keep them? All right, so let's come back over here. We're going to do a few things. Insert into roles where, values. We only want to do type and user ID. We're going to insert the values, admin, and 1, and mod 1, commit. And now let's run that. So it shouldn't be the commit that's the issue. If I come over here to roles, I see them in the database. Now, if I do this, and I restart the database, and I go back, it's gone. So when we're connecting to the database, we're rewriting the database. Why is it rewriting the database? That's what we got to figure out next. Provider. Create connection. Oh, goodness. Why is this doing this to us? So look, I think we pretty much got this nailed down. So I'm gonna just do this. Right, like that. So there we go. So that should give us back all of the roles that the user has. We just have to figure out why it's resetting our database on us. Oh. We're dropping all tables. That would be why. That would be why. Why are we dropping all tables? I'm not sure. But now, if I were... Actually, let me stop that real quick. And then we're going to go back to the database, and we're going to do... Where'd the database go? There it is. And then we're going to run this. Alrighty. So now if we go over to roles, we see we have the roles. And then I'm going to start the server. There we go. And then if we recheck the roles are still there. We just started the server. And then if we do this, run that. Internal server error. Could not locate column and row for column type. That's funny because we have a type right there. So I'm not sure what that means exactly. We want to go over here. Let's see if that changes anything. What do you mean get user is not defined? Oh, I see. Okay. All right, cool. So we went down into the other section of the code. So that means we were able to get past that line. So if I come back over here, let's go back over to admin.py. So this line right here is checking if admin not enrolls. So let's do admin enrolls just to see if having an admin role causes it to 40. There we go, 403 forbidden, not an admin. So like when I invert the condition, it now breaks. So now we're able to check if a user is an admin. So the other thing we need to do, the next thing we're going to do, is we're going to come back over here. Where'd it go? Where'd the scratch file go? There it is. It's right there. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to take this. I'm going to take all of this right here. And I'm going to go over here. Let's just copy that file. And we're going to do admin, testing admin. We're going to move all of this into a test. Right there. Whoops, not the file name. We don't want to put the file name there. We want to put this here. And get rid of everything below that. Right like that. We don't need this, and we don't need this. Redo that. Uh, await client dot get. All right. Await client dot get. I have a syntax error somewhere, don't I? I'm just not seeing it. I've got an extra. There we go. There we go. All right, so now we have that working. And then I'm going to assert response code equals 403. And we're going to make that one no cookie. We're going to make a few of these. So we're going to do test DB page, no cookie. All right. So then we're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of this. So there's going to be no cookie. It's going to 403. And then we're going to have test DB page. Invalid cookie. And so that's just going to be an empty dictionary. And that should be 403, right? Okay. And then we're going to test DB page, not an admin. And so this will actually make things a lot easier, because what I'm going to be able to do is I'll be able to modify my database on the fly as we're doing this. So I'll be able to modify the database, and it should, in theory, right? Maybe, well, hopefully, it should work throughout, and it'll modify it everywhere. So this one, we're going to send in that, or user ID one. And what we're going to do is we're going to we're going to have the database not with any roles. Not an admin, and then this one, test DB page admin. So this one we're going to have to get the database. What's our fixture for that? Setup context, database settings. Don't think I have a way to get the database. We have async engine. So we just have to grab an async engine. And then we can do that with db equals context.get async engine. So there we go. Now it's an async engine now. And then we can do db dot. How do we do that? How do we add a role to the database? So I'm just going to come over here, back to users, because right here, up here, yeah, right there. Oh dear. Go back to where I was. There we go. Going to do that, and we're going to import from roles, import role model. And then we're going to do role. Why did you not go where I wanted you? There we go. Role model. Type equals admin. User ID equals 1. Right, like that. Okay, so we're adding a role. And then db.session.begin. So we begin a transaction, then we do db.add user model. There we go. All right, that's what we had to do. Session.add user model, session.commit, nope. db.engine. Nope. All right. Cool. So I guess it's just automatically committing with that begin. So that should automatically handle that. So that in theory should add the admin role to user ID 1. So when this requests it, it should give us a 200. It's not, but, and then if I run Python tests and testing admin, 4 tests failed. Uh-oh. And the reason being, we're getting the wrong thing. We need to import site, and then when we create the client, three failed, 1 passed. Expected a string value. What are you talking about? These aren't getting set. Cool. Value, all right, I see, there it is. Value equals none. So why is it not getting the correct context? Let's do this. Why is it connecting? It shouldn't be connecting. I think... Oh, I know what to do. Site dot dependencies dot, is there a way for me to ask it for I need to get my stuff from... All right, so it's going to be dependency overrides dot get create context, or we just pass back create context and then we call it. So that'll get us the context. Thing is still exploded. It still says connecting. if database return, or if not database, so we'll just do that. If not database, boom, boom, boom. Database equals context dot create async engine. Now what? Why are you exploding? Signature verification failed. Oh, I know why. 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 I think it's all working. We just need to, instead of doing this right here, we need to get the actually, you know what? We actually should probably handle that differently. Where in my code is that blowing up? Yeah, right there. Blowing up right here. Try. Accept. And then the error message it's giving me invalid signature. JWT exceptions invalid signature. Right like that. So now that should handle those errors. So we have one fail. But I need to fix those signatures, which isn't hard. It's super simple, actually, because all we have to do is grab the authentication settings. Right here, settings equals context.get authentication settings, right like that. And then down here, get rid of that line so I can get rid of the squigglies. And then we do settings.jwt.private key. And then we do JWT or settings.jwt.algorithm. Urgh. Now what? You know what? We can do this. Async session. We can do context.get async session as session. All right, so now we got to figure out why this is blowing up. And we need to come over to where do we need to go? We need to go back to admin.py. No, we need to go back to database users. Here we go. We need to figure out why this is not giving me back. Actually, we can do it from admin.py because print roles session user ID. We run it again. It's empty. It's not getting any roles back. There we go. Now we got an admin and a 1. So this is going to be a different error. You see, it's a much bigger error. We scroll down, name get user is not defined. All right, cool. So what that means is this function right here is blowing up. But we've got up here in this logic, we're checking to make sure that the user ID or the cookie is not in there. If it isn't, we throw a 403. Then we have a user ID and cookie, and we get the user, and we check the role, which is what we just got working. And then we check if it's an email. We haven't got that working yet, have we? We're gonna do hello world. There we go. So that's working right there, right now. We need to add an email auth, because an email auth should give us a 200. DB page, admin page, email login. And so we don't need to do any of this. We do need that. And then we need to do email. Right, like that. All right, and I think this authentication settings, we're actually going to add admin email string equals field default equals no one at nowhere.com. No one at nowhere. There we go. And we're just going to set the default to empty, right like that. So if it's an empty string, because nobody can have the email empty string. SOC, auth, admin, email. So now I can grab that from the environment. And we can say here, we can actually pass that in because we've got the settings. So we can do settings.admin email, right like that. So we can pass in the correct email, and then we come over here, elif email in session, and we can actually do this, session.get email is not equal to, do we have the settings? We do. We have settings.admin email, raise, HTTP exception, 403, not an admin. This might be where it's blowing up. Boom, they all worked. All right, cool. So now What do we do now? What do we do now? What do we do now? We're almost done. I'm about to call it a night. I'm about to wrap it up. So if you have any questions, let me know in the next few seconds. We're about to have this working, which is awesome. So the next thing I need to test, I need to come back over here to the testing admin. I want to test the invalid email. Invalid email. And so for that, I'm going to authenticate it. Not zek@zek.com. And that should return a 403. Boom, passed. Works. It works! It works! It is functioning. Let me get rid of that extra print I added in there somewhere. It should be in the provider right here. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do from logging import get logger, and then I'm gonna do logging log equals get logger database. Really like that. And then instead of calling print info, and we'll make it an F string. Now if I run that, you don't see all of that logging output, right? But then if I come over here and I restart it, and I come back over here, where'd PyCharm go? There we go. All right, command R, and we run that scratch file we were working with. Hello world, it worked. So it didn't show the output even though I logged it. So I guess I have to figure out how to set that. Let's just see. Log.set level. Log. It's gonna be up here, isn't it? Set level info. So let's try running that again. I wonder why it's not showing me the logging output. Oh well, not gonna worry about it. It's not a problem. For now, it's not a problem anyway. We'll get rid of that for now. We'll figure out logging another day. It's not a big deal. All right, so I just want to, as we're wrapping up, so we've got all of this working, just to make sure we didn't blow anything up, we'll just run the admin tests again. Booyah, all 6 tests that we wrote today are working. So let's go ahead and get that committed. We can bring this back over here. And not what I wanted. There we go. There we go. All right, so we modified the Docker file. I'm gonna ignore that. The deploy, we're not gonna worry about. Admin.py. Is that what we want to commit first? Let's go here. Provider. You know what? I'm going to discard those changes because that actually might leak information I don't want it to leak. Like it might, I think it's going to actually include the username and password for the database. So I don't want that in my logs. All right. Site. Users. Add ability to query a user's roles. And then authentication. Add the admin user's email to the auth config. Alrighty, yeah, so we're wrapping up here. So if you've got any questions, make sure you let me know now or forever hold your peace. Add tests for the admin DB page. And implement the admin DB page authentication. We haven't actually implemented the page, but the page is now being authenticated correctly based on the rules that we've set in our tests. Correctly get database from the context on startup. There we go. Okay, cool. Very, very awesome. I'm trying to think. Actually, no, I do want to keep this. This is the updated Docker file. Update Docker file to use non-root user. And let's pull. Let's see how much that blows up. And there's a problem. We have a problem right here. I don't want to use, like, this one's coming from origin main. So I know that's what I pulled. What I'm pulling is coming from the origin. And then main is mine. And you can see if I hover over it, or you can see the commit message says update Docker file to use non-root user, which is what I just wrote up. And then correct the container port that needs to be exposed. I don't have to worry about that. You know what? Actually, I do want that one. You know why I want that one? Because even though it's going to be wrong, it correctly sets up my Kubernetes config. So I can modify the one line of change I needed from this one right here, if I find I need it. All right, continue. There we go. All right, so now we can push that to the cloud, up into GitHub. There we go. So now we have the authentication page is working. The authentication is working for the DB settings page. That's going to be a special page because it has to be able to handle the case where the database isn't working. So I might have to go in there and adjust a few more things to get them working correctly. But for now, it's working the way it needs to. And I think like one of the things we probably will end up doing, maybe we'll do that right now real quick, while I'm thinking about it, while it's on the brain, I'm going to come here. And because this is making a request to the database, this is looking for, nope, it won't matter. Never mind. Because you see, as we're going down through this function, because this has to work without the database connecting. This might cause it to blow up. I'm not sure. We'll find out in a little bit. We'll find out eventually. But once we're in, I'll set this up. If this blows up, I'll modify it to not blow up and just inject like none or who knows what. We'll figure something out. But all of this code here, this doesn't use the database. 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 And this is the only bit right here. This uses the database to get the roles. But it only runs if the user ID is in the session that's inside the cookie jot, right? But the cookie jot will only contain a user ID if it was able to connect to the database. If it can't connect to the database, it's just going to take the email from the Discord information, the information that Discord gives our website. It's going to take the email from that and put that into the jot instead. So then it'll come down to here, detect the email, check that it's the admin email, and if it's not, it'll give a 403 not an admin exception. And then if the email is correct, it'll return the session, which is going to contain the email, and it's going to contain your Discord ID. Well, mine, because I'm going to be the only one that'll be able to get to this point on this page. All right, cool. Very, very cool. All right, yeah, so if you're joining us and you don't know about the Beginner.Code's Discord server, it's a community of just shy of 8,000 members. I think we're coming up on 7,900 here in a few days. But it still feels like a pretty decently small size community. Like if you send a message, it's not going to get lost in a flood of other messages. If you ask a question in a help channel, it's not going to get lost in a flood of help questions. And we have a lot of really friendly people who are there to help you out, who love to talk to you about code, talk to you about computers, talk to you about video games, whatever it is you're interested in. And if you have any questions about programming, going into college, your college courses, your school courses, if you have a job and you have a question, we might be able to help. We do want to be careful that we don't help with stuff that's for profit. We prefer that it's a personal project or you're on your learning journey. But we try to help out where we can in the best ways that we can. And we try to have fun while we're doing it and make it as low stress as possible and be as friendly as possible. So if you haven't already, join us on the Beginner.Code's Discord server. I have the link in the description below. If you'd like to talk to me, I am on the Beginner.Code's Discord server. I'm here checking my comments fairly regularly. And I'm on Twitter at ZekCodes on Twitter. I think I have my Twitter down in the description below. That's a great place to reach out to me. I check my Twitter all day, every day, too much. So probably the fastest way you'll find me, whether I'm at work or not, that's what I'm probably going to see first. So if you want to talk to me, the Discord or my Twitter, great places. Comments here, great places. Everything in the description below. So I hope you all have a great week. I plan to be live this coming Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So be there. We're going to be working on the file storage web app. Some more, working on the CLI that's connecting to that storage web app. We got to get file syncing back and forth. I've got some of that working. We have to pick it up. We missed a week because of Father's Day, but we will be back this coming Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And I will be live next Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, working on something. Who knows what? Hopefully I can get this working at some point in the next week and a half. Probably July, beginning of July. We will begin the Summer of Code event on the Beginner.Code's Discord server. So keep a watch. I will announce it on my Twitter. I will announce it on the Discord server when it goes live. So keep an eye out. I will probably announce it on here too when it goes live. So keep an eye out. Keep an eye out. Keep an eye out. We're going to be having a lot of fun this summer. We're going to be doing some fun stuff. We're going to be hanging out. We're going to be having fun. And we're hopefully going to be growing. We're hopefully all going to be learning a lot of cool stuff this summer. I know for like Wang, it is not summer, it is winter, and I apologize. I'm not sure how to be inclusive of the handful of people in the Southern Hemisphere. But all right, you all have a great week. I will see you Sunday. You all have a great night.